Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me today. Today we are going to be focusing on some masking and some of my favorite quick and easy, simple go-to cards when it comes to masking. Now, I am going to be using some VersaFine clear inks today. I'm going to be doing some first and second generation stamping. So I want some really crisp, beautiful, solid stamping inks. So these are my go-to. If you've watched my channel and you know there is a review, I have a review on these inks where I can show you my recommendations and things that I like and don't like about them. And then here I have some masking magic from Gina. Now I store all of my used little bits and pieces in the back, my extra little bits and pieces, but recently I discovered that there is masking magic strips. Now, how exciting is this? I did not actually know this product existed, and of course you can absolutely just cut up your masking magic sheets, the sheets that you get, into strips, and that's what I have been doing, and I absolutely love this masking paper. So in this package you get 3 different sizes. These are the 1/2 inch strips, and then this one here is going to be the 1/4 inch strips. I probably use this size most often. That's the size I cut from my sheets most often. And then these are the 1/8, I guess, strips, and these are also really handy, but I probably use the 1/2 and the 1/4 inch strips most often, and that is what there is most of in the package. So that helps me out too. So I'm going to be using those for my first one today. In fact, all of them today. Really easy, quick masking. If you don't have masking sheets, then you could definitely, I showed you a little tip a couple of videos ago where I took some mint tape, and that comes in 1 inch wide rolls or 4 inch wide, and you can just temporarily put it down onto a piece of copy paper and then cut that into really thin strips too, or whatever size that you might need. That is going to work really well. You may even just have some post-it notes. You can either cut the sticky bit off of it. Yeah, lots of different ways that you can go about creating this kind of pattern. Now, this is just so easy, and this is one of those card making things. Sometimes I just like to go back to basics, back to not complicated, back to really just beautiful and simple card making. And often I find that those cards are just most appreciated. Beautiful, bright and colourful, and I think that's what people are really drawn to. So I've gone for some really almost summery kind of colours. It puts me in a good mood. Lots of cheerful, happy summertime. This one is called Summertime. The red is called Tulip Red, charming pink, and they're just gorgeous, gorgeous colours. Now I'm doing some ink blending with finger daubers. If you want a smooth ink blend, I would not recommend finger daubers, but this is one thing that I love about this technique, is that it doesn't have to be smooth blending. You are not going to see this really at the end. So I have 5 colors of the VersaFine clear inks here, and I'm just putting, making sure that they're pretty much just not beside each other. The same color isn't beside each other. So really simple, and that's how I like to keep my card making. It's probably what I enjoy most. When it comes to card making, not very often do I sit down and do sort of like a really big 3 or 4 hour project in card making. This one here is called Leaf Canopy, and I absolutely love this. This was in my favorites last year. I really love this one from Altenew. I love the outlines. I love the solid stamps, and I'm going to use one of the solid stamps for today's. Now, this kind of reminds me of the Retiform technique, except for sort of not really. I'm going to use the same stamp for everything. If I remember, or if you could remind me, I will put a link to a couple of videos I've done using the Retiform technique, and it does produce beautiful results. And this one is obviously sort of bright and cheerful. I know I've done one that's sort of more grungy, vintagey sort of style as well. I'm using a little bit of that mint tape, that low tack tape that I talked about earlier, to section off these areas. They do have the 1/4 inch masking in between them, but sometimes my stamp is going to go over that, so I just reuse the same bits over and over again, and just make sure I've got everything covered so that I'm not going to go into another square, because all I'm doing is stamping off 1 or 2 times, so using first and here second generation stamping, and stamping in that area that I have masked off in that color. So just sort of tone on tone, the same colored ink, not making it too complicated, but it is going to be a bright and cheerful card, which is what I I am aiming for. And I love the simplicity of this. As I said, it's a really quick technique. It doesn't take me too long at all. And so those are the things that I often appreciate. Let me know in the comment section down below. Are you more likely to sit down and sort of settle into a project that's going to have lots and lots of different elements? Or do you sort of lean towards the more quicker, shorter techniques in card making? I always find that really interesting. I think for me it probably just depends on how I'm feeling and what amount of time I have spare, or I think I have spare. I also think that one of the reasons that I lean towards masking for quickly, sort of the quick style of card making, is that when you peel back that masking, there is nothing like that clean, crisp line that you get and you make. I really, really like that look, and that appeals to me. And so I just really love when you get to peel back the masking paper and see that no ink has bled through it all, and you have these crisp, beautiful lines. That's part of the reason why I have honed in on the exact masking and low-tack tapes that I like, for those exact reasons that I don't want to go to all of that beautiful effort and then realize that actually some of the stamping has bled through and gotten where I don't want it to get. Now, fear not, because if that happens, we always have a way of making it work. You know me and this channel. I really love using the products to the full extent of what I can get out of them, using them in lots of different ways if we choose to invest in these products, because card making is not really a cheap hobby, and so we definitely want to make the most of the supplies that we purchase. So I have peeled off the masking paper here, and this just looks so crisp and gorgeous. I'm going to quickly run through a couple more different versions that are my absolute go-tos for masking, quick masking. Now I'm going to use the 1/4 inch strips again, and these ones are just going to go across the page. Now I actually decided I was going to do 3 different little partitions here, but I decided to change my mind and end up doing 4. I'm going to use the Warm Breeze, Paradise, Bluebell, and the Medieval Blue, and that is because this sort of goes from a light blue roughly to a dark blue. Now again, I'm just trying to get a little bit of color down there. And for the bottom one, I'm okay that it's a bigger space because I know that I'll be trimming this down and putting this down onto a card base. This one here is just a card front, so I know I'll be trimming it down, and I know that I will trim some off the bottom later on to even this out. So again, I'm just using the finger daubers. I'm making this really quick and really speedy. I want to show you that you can truly use almost any stamps. You can use outline stamps, you can use solid stamps, you can use something in between that might not be either of those, and I'll show you that in just a second. For this one here, I have 2 of my favorite stamp sets. So the first one was the leaf canopy, and this one is my leaf clusters. This one does not have the outlines. They are all solid, but there's sort of 2 different types of leaves, or just sizes perhaps, and I would suggest that even getting one or the other of these, they are somewhat similar. I guess one are just rounded leaves and one are perhaps a little bit more realistic, but I couldn't help myself because these are 2 of my absolute favorite stamp sets. They are really worth investing in, and boy have I made the most of them. So this one, I'm going to stamp it in the Warm Breeze. I'm not doing any second generation stamping for this. I'm just doing first generation, just pure stamping with the ink, and I'm putting the colored ink that I ink blended. I'm using that as my stamping ink as well, and I used 2 different stamps of the leaf that are from that same stamp set. Now I'm going to leave the 3rd one free and just go into the 4th one. As I said, I know that I'm going to be cutting a little bit off the bottom here, so I'm not too worried about how that part looks, and leave that 3rd space free. I do have one more card I'm quickly going to show you that you can change up really, really quickly the look of sort of this card, but just ever so slightly different, just with a little bit of masking. So I'm going to do a very similar pattern. I have another piece ready to go here, and I'm going to take these strips again, and again, by all means, you don't have to use these strips. I really like that the exact stick of the masking magic. It has never torn my paper. It's got the perfect amount of stick. And definitely if you create a mask from this, like if you stamped on it and create a mask, then you should put it back onto the release paper, because you can use it over and over again. Now this one here, I'm just going to change it up ever so slightly by adding one of those 1/2-inch strips, and I'm just going to do a masking strip down the right hand side on a bit of an angle, and then do very similar to the first one I created, and then this way it's just going to add that extra little element. For this one, I'm going to use the mini skeleton leaves. As I said, you can use a solid stamp, an outline stamp, or something in between. So I'm going to use some, I did use second generation. I stamped off on some of them. I'm going to use that extra little piece of paper there as a bit of a mask so that I don't go into the bit that I don't want. But I did decide that it's almost a little bit too light. So I did do some full strength stamping, and then I will come back and sort of adjust the amount that I want to do later on. And so again, this is just really, really simple, not using too many supplies at all. Just a stamp set and some ink, and then of course you can stamp in whatever sentiment you like. I'm going to show you what I like to do for these, just to add that extra little element of sparkle, just to sort of step it up a notch. But at this point I thought I was finished and I was happy with the amount of stamping, but it kind of looked a little bit empty. The second generation stamping just wasn't quite full enough, so I'm going to come back in and add in a couple more of the full strength ones, and then I was much happier with how that looked already. Now, turning these into cards. Most of these I'm going to trim down a little bit. They are going to go on a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card base. Just remember that masking doesn't have to be super complex, and these cards are absolutely stunning. I had so much fun just sitting down having a nice little card making session and using some gorgeous bright colourful inks, and I really like the results. I have a little Thinlits die set here. These I've cut one from vellum and I've cut one from regular white cardstock. A little Gina Designs sentiment. This is one of the inside out ones for the birthday, so there is really good inside the card sentiments here, little messages, little sayings for the insides of cards, so that's why I purchased that one. I like those. If I'm going to put a stamp in the inside of the card, that's what I'll reach for. This one is going to say birthday wishes on the outside, and I want to do something just a little bit for this card, but I don't want to take away from the background that we have created, because it's so bright and beautiful and cheery at this point. So if I want to add a little bit of sort of glimmer or sparkle at this point, I will go ahead and add some gold thread to these cards. As I said, I don't want to take away from the background that we've created, so I don't really want any die cuts or anything in front of it, more than the sentiment, but I do love a good bit of gold thread. I have attached this card front onto a very slim border, a matting layer of black cardstock. I put some double-sided tape around the back there, and then I'm going to wind around the gold thread, and this is a really sort of glimmery, gorgeous gold thread. It really does sparkle, and so I think it just adds a little bit of something. Now these are some foam strips that I'm going to add to the back here. You can use foam dots, foam strips, or extra pieces of cardstock, whatever you would like to build up your sentiment just a little bit, to give it that little bit of lift off the page. And then take off the release paper, pop this down, and I generally have this sort of coming over some of the thread. This is going to help hold that in place as well. And I always feel like by using the vellum that you don't cover up quite as much of that beautiful background, and you can still, it's bright and colourful and cheery. Then I'm going to add some double-sided tape to the background. I'm speeding through all of this because you guys know how to do this part. I use my little trick where I put 4 tabs up and then one piece of sticky in the middle. That way I can shift it around until I get it in exactly the right spot, and then I can press down in the middle with my thumb and remove each one of the tabs, and you're going to have a gorgeous even border. Now for this one, I want to jazz it up just a little bit. We're going to pull away those masking magic strips and get those clear, crisp lines. And then for the one that we skipped, the third one down that we missed, that's where the sentiment is going to go. By all means, you could truly just stamp a sentiment in a coordinating blue, or maybe the darker blue color, or maybe a black, something that's really going to show through with that ink blending in the background. But for me, I decided to, this is where that little bit of sparkle was going to come through, and I would do some some gold heat embossing for my sentiment that would go there. So this is the part where I knew I was going to trim this down, and as I said, I wanted to trim down that bottom one the heaviest, the most, and then just sort of trim up the sides so that they were nice and neat if there was anywhere that I started off the page with my ink blending. This just means that I'm able to really cut off any of those bits that accidentally got a little bit more ink than I was anticipating. So I think I want it to go this way with the sentiment, the third one down, rather than the other way up. I'm going to also cut a black matting layer for that one too. Now for these two, these colours are working for me because these are going to be more sympathy cards. So I needed 2 of these, unfortunately, 2 of these in 1 week, which, yeah, not a good week, but that's okay. This is from Visible Image called Forever in Your Heart, and I love the big feather from this stamp set. However, I also love that it has lovely 3 really gorgeous sentiments that you can use. So one of them says thinking of you, one says with sympathy, and the other one says special memories of your loved one stay forever in your heart. And I just love all 3 of these sentiments, but 2 of these are going to fit nicely on the next 2 cards. I make sure to use my anti-static powder tool because we have used some pigment inks here. So with a good flick of the cardstock, I'm getting rid of all of the other embossing powder that I didn't want there. And you can see that gorgeous extra little bit of sparkle. As I said, I'm going to pop this one onto a matting layer as well, and I think that just gives it a really nice finishing touch, especially when it's going onto a crisp white card base. Just a tiny, tiny fraction of a black border. And for the Thinking of You cards, I don't generally put sequins or anything like that on them. I feel like that's sometimes a little bit too much, but that's just a personal opinion. And then this is the second one ready to go, and then we are going to do the third one as well. We get to pull off that gorgeous masking magic. But for the third one, I thought I would do a darker card base, a dark style. So this is the Hero Hues navy cardstock. And I really, really like this color. I will have all of these supplies linked down below. If you are interested in checking them out, then I appreciate it when you can use these links, and when you are able to, that helps me out a lot. So I quickly make a card base, and then I'm just going to add the card. I still need to cut it down and do all those good things and add the sentiment, but you can see it's got those crisp lines. I cut off the bottom one. I love the gentle idea of the falling leaves for a sympathy card. I like that. So trim this right down. This ends up being about 3 3/4 by 5 inches. So there's going to be a decent border around the outline. Then for this one, I'm going to do the other one from what I did before. So this one is going to say with sympathy. And then I am going to add the same gold embossing powder. I think it's nice just to have that little bit of shine even on these cards. It's really nice. And speaking of really nice, I really do love to see your cards and your versions of these. So please, if you are able to, or you feel like you would like to, then join us on the Come Crafting with Natasha Facebook page, and you are able to post your projects there so that I can see them and I can talk to you there. And I love seeing the projects that you create. I love it when I see people being inspired by some of the videos, and not necessarily a whole video. It might just be one part of it, one little part that you picked up on, and that really makes my day that I release these videos and they're able to inspire you, not even for the whole card sometimes, just for a little something. It is really an amazing community that we've built up. I do feel so grateful. It's a really funny feeling, really, releasing videos on YouTube for me. It's somewhere that I never thought I would end up, but I thoroughly enjoy card making, and that's really just how I started my YouTube journey. And I ended up posting videos, and now I post 3 videos every single week without fail, without ever having a break, which I absolutely love. But if you would like to support my channel, make sure to go to the Buy Me a Coffee link, which I will leave down below as well. For this one here, I did pop a little white inset into the card just so that someone is able to easily write on the inside. But I hope you've enjoyed these 3 cards using masking as a highlight today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks, bye!